Welcome to Level 4 Stock Investing. In this video, I'll show you the steps to guarantee your financial future. And we'll be covering a lot of different things. We're going to be diving into Stock Investing 101, the 401k, Roth IRA, Taxable Brokerage, and then a bonus section at the end. And this video is part of the Cash Flow Explorer program by TrailMix Wealth. And it is the first video in Level 4, always safety first. Before I ever got into alternative investments or cash flowing investments, this was the financial foundation that I built. And it will include all of the core personal finance stuff that you hear people talk about online. I'm smushing it all into one video, and by the end of it, you're going to know exactly which accounts to use, how they work, and what to do first. Before we get into it, a quick disclaimer that I'm not a financial advisor or a certified financial planner, and this is education, not advice. There are a lot of nuances to investing, and I can't possibly cover them all in this video. But let's dive into Stock Investing 101. I have a question for you. Would you rather have a penny that doubles every day for 30 days or $1 million in cash today? What would you say? Well, if you choose the penny, let's see what happens. Your first 15 days, you get up to $163. So let me know, you want to change your mind? Do you want to go get the $1 million in cash? Well, let's give it a little bit more time. By the end of day 30, the penny has grown to $2.6 million. So the penny actually wins and it beats $1 million in cash. Of course, this is a hypothetical example, and I really wish I had this penny, but what it is teaching us is that small amounts can multiply over time, and this is thanks to compound interest. So I'm sure you've seen this graph many times, where you don't put in that much money, but if you let it grow for 30 years, it really starts to take off. So just like the penny doubled for 30 days, think about your investments growing for 30 years. This is the gold standard advice of investing. Start early and invest as much as you can. The GOAT of investing, Warren Buffett, famously said, rule number 1, never lose money. And rule number 2, never forget rule number 1. So when we're thinking about investing, when you're young, you can take risks with your time, but not your money. When you're in your 20s and 30s, that money can grow to huge amounts thanks to compound interest. So it's really important to avoid risk with your investments. And to dive into this topic deeper, would you rather buy stocks individually that you choose or get a blend of the United States top 500 companies? And to tease the answer out here a little bit, I'll share a great quote from Daniel Kahneman, who says, "There are domains in which expertise is not possible. Stock picking is a good example. And in long-term political strategic forecasting, it's been shown that experts are just not better than a dart-throwing monkey. Other people have said that a blindfolded dart-throwing monkey could choose better stocks than the experts. There are so many people, like active fund managers, that spend thousands of hours trying to pick stocks. It is really insightful to see the data here because even the experts who spend all of their day trying to do this perform worse than just the index as a whole. As you can see in the chart here, of all the active funds that were choosing stocks, 79% of them performed worse than if you had just bought the S&P 500 index. So very consistently, active fund managers do worse than the general market. And over a 20 and 30-year time horizon, only 2 or 1% of them actually beat the market. I hate to tell you, but even if you have 4 monitors set up, you're not going to be beating the market. What you can do instead is you essentially buy a pie with all of these slices already included. And this is called the S&P 500. So this is the blend of the United States top 500 companies. So instead of going through and buying all of these stocks individually, you can buy one S&P 500 index stock, like VOO is a very popular thing, and now you have access to the top 500 companies in the United States. I took the screenshot here of how the S&P 500 has been performing, and it is on an absolute tear. And since the 90s here, it is up 879%. So not only do index funds like these perform better than active fund managers, but they're also easier and cheaper to buy. You can buy them for $10 and there are extremely low fees, and some of these funds are even free. This video is not going to be a deep dive on stocks, but when you're thinking about stock investing 101, to win the stock game, remember the penny and the pie. So the penny, invest early, often, and hold for the long term. And then the pie, buy low-cost index funds and ETFs for diversification. This is all you need to do when it comes to stocks. And when you're considering stocks versus alternative investments, to win the stock game, don't be active. Don't do anything funky. Just put it into an index fund. But if you want to win the alternative investments and any investments outside of the stock market, don't be passive. You have to be very active to invest in your education and find good sponsors. So like I mentioned, this video is not going to be a deep dive on everything you need to know about stock investing. Instead, those are the basics, and now I'm going to get into the different accounts that you can use to guarantee your financial future. In the United States, retirement used to mean a pension. So for many Americans, they received a pension after decades of service at their company. So if you stayed for 20 years, maybe on your last day, you would get a check and you'd get a new check in the mail every month to pay you for your service. Traditional retirement options were a pension, Social Security, and a 401k. So for your pension, that was funded by your company. So they paid you for your service, but the problem is that they're fairly rare nowadays and they require decades of service. You can still get pensions at some government agencies, but you won't find many in private enterprises. For Social Security, it is funded by the government, so the government is sending you a check. However, that is funded by your tax dollars that you've been working through all of your income earning years. But the problem with Social Security is that it's more so backup income and not something I would rely on. And you may still pay income tax on the Social Security income that you receive. And then to round us out, we have the 401k. So where it used to be your pension and Social Security, now the 401k moves a lot more of the responsibility to invest your retirement on you. So you are funding your 401k, and then your employer can help you with it too. The problem with the 401k is that it shifts the ownership and responsibility onto you to set money aside for your own retirement and plan ahead. In order to encourage you to put money into your 401k, that's why the government has offered some incentives for you to use it. And I know 401k sounds kind of crazy. Like, what actually is a 401k? I want to make this super simple, that the 401k is just an account that you use to invest for retirement. So if you have a Fidelity account or a Vanguard account or a Schwab account, and it's just another account in there, and it is a bucket that you use to invest for retirement. And anyone who is working or even self-employed has access to a certain type of 401k, so it's something that just about anybody could use. To show you how this fits in the flow, your 401k is funded through deductions from your work paycheck. So before this money ever hits your bank account, it goes right into your 401k. You will never see your 401k contributions go through your bank account and then you invest it. It is always handled by work. And I also mentioned earlier that there is an incentive to use your 401k because the government wants to encourage you to take charge of your own retirement. The government can't be liable if tons of people in the future can't retire, so they want to encourage you to do this yourself. There are two big types of incentives to use your 401k. The first is the employer match. So your employer probably offers a match like up to 5% of your salary. So if you make $100,000 and you contribute $5,000 to your 401k, your employer will match you up to another $5,000. So that is free money of the 401k match. As long as you do your part, putting in 5k, your employer will match you with another 5k. The other big incentive to use the 401k is for the tax benefits. When you contribute to your 401k, you lower your taxable income this year. So if you're in high income earning years right now, you actually don't pay taxes on that money, you invest it for a long time, and then you pay taxes in the future. So the theory is that you get a tax break today while you're in a higher tax bracket, and then you pay taxes later in retirement when you're in a lower tax bracket. And this is what it looks like on a graph. So when you invest your traditional 401k, you have no tax up front. So it grows for that 30-year period or however long it is. And then when you actually are ready to use your 401k, you will pay taxes on it later when you take a withdrawal. For a couple other details, there's an annual limit to how much you can put into a 401k. I did not include it here because it changes every year, but generally it's around mid $20,000. And generally you can't take money out of your 401k before age 59 and a half. And then you are eventually required to take distributions from your 401k, so you can't just let it grow forever. If you're curious how to set up your 401k, you can use the calculator to determine your employer match first, because we want to make sure you get your full employer match. And then you can set up your 401k contributions through HR or your benefits portal through work. And these are the contributions that will go right out of your paycheck directly into your 401k account. And then once the money is in your 401k, you can invest it into low-cost index funds and ETFs. This is just like the pie that we talked about earlier. So if you want to buy into the S&P 500, you can buy VOO, or you can buy the extended US index, which includes more companies outside of the S&P 500. That's VT-SAX. You can also buy international stocks, so anything outside of the United States. and that's VXUS. And then there is also an option that will automatically choose the best portfolio for you, and this is called a target date retirement fund. So typically how these are set up, if you're going to be retiring in 2055, let's say, it will start more allocated to stocks and less to bonds to let your investments grow for a longer time. And then when you get closer to retirement, it will automatically start to lower your stock allocation and put more towards bonds. Personally, since I'm so young, I put 100% of it into stock indexes like VOO, VT-SAX, or VXUS because I don't really want much bond exposure. So after you've set up your retirement contributions with HR and you've chosen the index funds that you want, you just let it grow in autopilot. To show you what this actually looks like within something like Fidelity, you have your 401k with the total balance. And then within your 401k, you can choose your holdings. So in this case, we have $8,000 in VOO and $4,000 in VXUS. That's what you need to know about the 401k. Next up is the Roth IRA. The Roth IRA is yet another retirement option that you can use, and it is funded by you. A lot of people aren't sure if they should use the 401k or the Roth IRA, but the Ranger tip here is to use both the 401k and Roth IRA to secure your retirement. Remember, we want to make sure we have enough for retirement, and this video is about guaranteeing your financial future and retirement. So we want to use both the 401k and Roth IRA. And just like the 401k, the Roth IRA is just another account that you can use to invest for retirement. So it can live in the same Fidelity, Vanguard, or Schwab account as your 401k. But unlike your 401k that comes out of your work paychecks, your Roth IRA is funded by your after-tax cash. So you've already paid taxes on this money, it goes through your savings account, and then you move it into the Roth IRA. For some extra details on the Roth IRA, it stands for Individual Retirement Account. So you are the one funding it. It is a personal account, it is an individual account. So you and your partner can both have your own Roth IRA. And there is also an annual limit to how much you can put into your Roth IRA. It could be $7,500 or $8,000, so check out the current contribution limits for the year. There is no match on a Roth IRA because there is no employer to match it. This is your personal account. And you also need to put earned income to a Roth IRA. So you earn income, you pay taxes on it, and then you can move it into your Roth IRA. And similarly to the 401k, you generally can't take growth and earnings out of your Roth IRA before age 59 and a half. So this is meant to sit there and grow for the long term as a retirement account. There's a huge tax benefit available for the Roth IRA. When you contribute to the Roth IRA, you don't pay taxes on any of your future gains. So the theory is you pay taxes today if you're in a lower tax bracket, and then you don't pay taxes later if you're expecting to be in a higher tax bracket. So all of your earnings in the future are tax-free. To plot this against the traditional 401k, you can see that the Roth IRA starts lower than the traditional 401k because you've paid taxes on that money, and you also can't put as much into it compared to a 401k. But then you let both of them grow for 30 years, and then at the end, you don't pay taxes on the Roth IRA, but you do pay taxes on the traditional 401k. So I've tried to make this as simple as possible. People typically use the traditional 401k and the Roth IRA. However, this doesn't tell the full story. Within the 401k and the IRA, you have both versions available. People typically talk about the traditional 401k where you have taxes later, and then the Roth IRA. But there are also two other versions. You also have a Roth 401k and a traditional IRA. However, not everybody may have access to a Roth 401k because that needs to be offered through your employer. But everybody has access to a traditional IRA and a Roth IRA. So remember, you can choose to use both a 401k and an IRA. The next decision you need to make is, should I choose traditional or should I choose Roth? Well, here's a couple questions you can ask yourself to help decide. You can ask, do I expect my income to be higher or lower in retirement? If you expect your income to be higher in retirement, you'll most likely be in a higher tax bracket. So you would rather pay Roth today so you don't have to pay later. But if you expect your income to be lower in retirement, you can choose traditional, where you don't pay taxes now, and then you pay taxes later at a much lower tax rate. But another thing to ask is, do you expect taxes and tax rates to be higher or lower in the future? If you think taxes may go higher in the future and you want to lock in your lower tax payments now, choose Roth. If you think it's going to be lower in the future, choose traditional. And if you truly cannot choose, that is okay. You can split your contributions 50-50. So if you put $10,000 into your 401k for the year, you can put 5,000 of it into the traditional 401k and $5,000 of it into the Roth 401k. And if you max out your IRA at $7,500, you can put $3,500 of that into your Roth IRA and $3,000 into traditional IRA. To lay this out really clearly, this is the standard retirement plan that most people talk about. So they use the traditional 401k and they get their full employer match. And then outside of that, they try to max out their Roth IRA. And this is great because it gives you flexibility. It is a good balance of pre-tax and Roth accounts. To give you a different example, this is my retirement plan. So I'm actually much more aggressive. I eat the tax frog today because I don't want to pay taxes in the future. We actually have historically low tax rates right now, so I'm paying all of my taxes today so I don't have to pay anything in the future. Seeing where things are going with the national debt and government programs makes me think that tax rates can't really go much lower in the future, so I'm going to lock it in now. So how this all works is I put my 401k contributions into the Roth 401k, and then Google's 401k match is in the traditional or pre-tax 401k. That covers my 401k setup. And then outside of that, we max out both Amy and I's Roth IRAs. So even though we're very heavily invested in Roth, we still have some exposure on the traditional side. To set up a Roth IRA, you're not going to go through HR. Remember, this is your own personal individual retirement account. But for simplicity, I recommend that you open up a Roth IRA at the same place that already has your 401k. And then once you have money in your Roth IRA, you have to then invest that money into low-cost index funds and ETFs like VOO, VTSAX, and VXUS. After that point, we just let it grow in autopilot. It is super important to mention that you have to actually invest the money that you put into your Roth IRA. And I'll show you what this looks like. So within your Roth IRA, some people just put money into their Roth IRA, and that just sits as a balance. So let's say $7,500. But what you actually need to do is choose the investments or choose the holdings. So of that $7,500, we put 5,000 of it into VOO and 2,500 into VXUS. It functions the exact same way as the 401k, and it's just another investment account, and then you choose what you invest in inside of it. That's a lot of the basics on the Roth IRA, so I'm going to give you a couple advanced strategies really quickly. What's awesome about the Roth IRA is you can withdraw your contributions at any time. So if you need to get that $7,500 out, that's available to you. You can also roll over old work 401ks into your Roth IRA. But just be careful when you do this because it is a taxable event. You want to time it so that you roll over your traditional accounts into Roth accounts in a lower income year, because I don't want you to pay high tax rates on that. For high earning households, you have to use a backdoor Roth IRA. There are certain income limits on who can use a Roth IRA, but it's really easy to get around it. What you do instead is you put the money into a traditional IRA, you can wait a day, and then you convert it right into your Roth IRA. It's just a two-step process instead of a one-step process. It's completely legal and it's way easier than you think. And the mega backdoor Roth IRA is even crazier. It has to be offered through your workplace. So you use an after-tax 401k and you can actually roll that into a Roth IRA in some cases. And that allows you to put in more than what the annual maximum limit is. And then later you can choose to self-direct your Roth IRA. It's called an SDIRA. And then you can invest it into whatever you like. So you don't have to choose just stocks in the future. I told you I'd be sharing more advanced topics. So here is my retirement plan so you can see it laid out. So like I said, we use the Roth 401k and Roth IRAs, but our income limit is above the threshold. So what we have to do instead is use the traditional IRA. So Amy puts $7,500 and then I put $7,500 each into our own respective traditional IRAs. And then we roll both of those over into our Roth IRAs. And then after that, after I've maxed out Google's Roth 401k for the year, I then put more money into Google's after-tax 401k. And with the money that then goes into the after-tax 401k, I roll that into my Roth IRA. So typically, you'd only be able to put $7,500 into a Roth IRA, but I'm able to smush a lot more money in there thanks to the after-tax 401k. My plan is very aggressive to get as much money as possible into my Roth IRA, and then I can self-direct it in the future to high growth investments that'll all be tax-free. The Roth IRA is seriously a superpower account because you never pay taxes on those gains in the future. So the more money you have in your Roth IRA, the more you can invest without any taxes for the rest of your life. Now let's get into the taxable brokerage account. Of the retirement options that you have more control over, the taxable brokerage account rounds us out. So this one is funded by you, no government, no employer, but the pro is that you have access to it at any time, but the con is that it's fully taxable. So the 401k and Roth IRA had good tax benefits. Taxable brokerage has no tax benefits, but you can take that money and put it in and out whenever you please. And if you're getting the pattern here, the taxable brokerage is yet another account you can use to invest. It's in the same spot as your 401k and Roth IRA. What is different about the taxable brokerage account is that this is the account that people are using for FIRE. So people pursuing financial independence to retire early, they use a taxable brokerage account because you can take that money out earlier than 59 and a half years old. Just like the Roth IRA, the taxable brokerage account is funded by your after-tax cash for investments. So it goes through your savings flow and then it's invested and then you put it into those low-cost index funds. And just like your Roth IRA, you pay taxes on that money and then it goes into your investments bucket and then you can choose to fund your taxable brokerage account. So it's cash that you've already paid taxes on. For some extra details, you can invest as much as you want in a taxable brokerage. There is no limit like the other accounts. There's also no age restriction, so you can use this for stock investments that you'll access before the age of 59 and a half. That's why this account is the early retirement bridge. You can live off of this account through the FIRE method in your 30s and 40s and 50s while you wait for your Roth IRA and 401k to hit that 59 and a half year. And there is no favorable tax treatment on this account. You invest cash you've already paid taxes on, and then the growth is taxed at short-term or long-term capital gains tax rates. So make sure you let your investments grow for at least 1 year or longer. And then your dividends are also taxed at ordinary income rates. So that's more efficient. So when we're investing in your taxable brokerage, ideally just invest for the long term. If you're wondering how to set one of these up, you can open up a taxable brokerage account at the same place that you have your Roth IRA and 401k. Just make things as easy as possible for yourself. And then you can set up automatic weekly and monthly investments and choose low-cost index funds and ETFs and let it grow in autopilot. It's really very simple. Now let's get into the bonus section. So I'm actually going to show you another retirement option that a lot of people aren't aware of, but it's actually the Health Savings Account, or HSA. And this one is funded by you and your employer. And in terms of taxes, you never pay taxes on the HSA, which is pretty awesome. Something that's not very well known about the HSA is you can actually invest the money that you put into it. So it most likely won't actually be in Fidelity. It may be through another platform that your workplace offers, but still you can go in there and choose what's invested inside of your HSA. The HSA is intended to be an account that you save for health expenses, but it actually functions more like a bonus investment account. So I call it a secret investment account with a triple tax benefit, and I'll tell you more about that. And it's available to those who have a high deductible health insurance plan, or HDHP. There's also an annual contribution limit to how much you can put into your HSA, and your HSA money does not expire at the end of the year like an FSA does, but make sure you read through your benefits so you understand how your HSA works versus your FSA. And just like your 401k, this one is also funded by your employer and you through your paycheck deductions. For the tax benefits here, just like a traditional 401k, HSA contributions lower your taxable income today, so you'll be paying less income taxes. And like a Roth IRA, your HSA grows tax-free. And then withdrawals for medical expenses are tax-free as well. So you basically have this supercharged no-tax investment account. To set one up, this will be through your employer. So you may need to go through HR or go through your benefits portal to set up your HSA contributions. And then once you start to have contributions into your HSA from your paycheck deductions, you do the exact same thing investing into low-cost index funds and ETFs, and then you let it grow. And just like the 401k, this money comes out of your paycheck, so it never actually hits your checking account. For the advanced methods on how to use the health savings account, you can choose to pay your medical expenses with your HSA card or out of your own pocket. So if you pay with your HSA, it's like using a medical debit card. People think that the HSA is free money, but it's money that you've already set aside for that. So you can choose to spend that money that's in your high yield savings account. But the other option is you can pay that medical expense out of your own pocket today, and then you let your HSA continue to compound and grow tax free, and then you reimburse yourself for that medical expense years later. So you can let your HSA grow for the long term and then just collect your medical receipts in the meantime. And in the future, when you need that money, you can reimburse yourself completely tax free. And then once you turn 65 years old, you can withdraw HSA funds for any reason. For medical expenses, those withdrawals are always tax free. And then for non medical expenses, you'll pay income taxes like your traditional 401k. So ideally, you just let this grow and then use it to pay all of your medical expenses in the future. So to tell you exactly how to use this, you have the same steps here, but at number 4, I changed it to say pay medical expenses out of your own pocket. Then you let it grow and then you reimburse yourself for your medical expenses later. So instead of using your HSA card and spending all that money, you're going to invest it for the long term instead and pay those expenses out of pocket for now. But then you get to reimburse yourself in the future. All right, let's dive into the takeaways for this one. As a reminder, these different options are just accounts that you can use to invest, and each one of them kind of has their own special abilities, so we want to use them to their fullest potential. We have to remember that the government is giving you incentives through tax deductions to use these accounts, so it's typically a really good idea to use them. If you're curious where to get started, here's the typical retirement flow. So first, we want to make sure that you get your full employer match because that is truly free money. After that, it's recommended that you max out your HSA because it is triple tax advantaged. Then you can max out your Roth IRA. And then once you've done those things, you're in a pretty good spot. You could choose to put more money into your taxable brokerage account if you're pursuing earlier retirement, or if you want that tax deduction, you can move it into your traditional 401k. To cover the takeaways here, for stock investing 101, remember the penny that small amounts compound in the stock market and the pie to buy diversified, low-cost index funds. Don't try to be active in the stock game. Next, the 401k employer match is free money. The Roth IRA is an awesome account for flexible, tax-free growth. The taxable brokerage account is flexible, but with no tax benefits, and it's what everybody uses for the FIRE investment account. And then lastly, the bonus HSA is triple tax advantage investing, and you reimburse yourself later. For these action items, I want to make sure that you are using these accounts properly. So review your current stock investments, review your 401k contributions, and make sure that you're getting your full employer match. Then review or set up Roth IRA contributions. You can choose to set up a taxable brokerage account or not. And then lastly, for your HSA, also review those HSA contributions. Utilize these to their fullest potential. So there you have it. These are the steps to guarantee your financial future and make sure that you can retire. Before we get to any other types of advanced investments, this is where my foundation is built, and it's a great place to get started. Up next is the credit game, where we'll dive into how to leverage your credit score for maximum benefits. See you there.